trophic level and rest of the energy is lost. It is unavailable. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And this is a law. This law is known as the 10% law of energy transfer.
Yes, ma'am.
It states that at every trophic level, the amount of energy transferred would be 10%. And 10% of what? So 10% of whatever total energy is available at that point of time, that will only be transferred to the trophic level.
Ma'am, like
Okay.
suppose the producers are producing the energy, while herbivores take it, they just take the 10% of energy.
Yeah, let's just say the producers are there. Okay. Now these producers, they are actually making, let's just say, 1000 joules of energy. Okay. Now from the producers, it would go to the herbivores, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now for taking out how much energy would be transferred to the herbivores, we'll take out 10% of 1000 because that is the available energy. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
What will the answer be? Come on. What is the answer? 100 joules,
10%.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Meaning you have to actually calculate it. Usually in the questions, it is given like this only. They'll tell you that, okay, the producers are making this much joules of energy. And then you'd have to find out how much energy is being transferred to the top carnivores. So you'll have to find it for each and every trophic level, and then you will reach to the top carnivore, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is how it happens actually. Okay, the energy that is transferred at each and every trophic level is just 10% of the total energy. Got my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Now see, what happens that like at every trophic level, the organisms which are present there, they would use the energy for themselves, right? For many works that they do, like for respiration, digestion, and everything. And then after that, what will happen? The rest of the energy is transferred to the next trophic level. So we can say that at each and every trophic level, the amount of energy being transferred, it reduces, isn't it? Like how the producers had 1000 joules, now the herbivores would have only 100 joules. And then if you take out 100% of 100 is how much? Sorry, 10% of 100?
10%.
It will be 10 joules, not percent, joules. Right? Joules is a unit, is the SI unit. Okay. So now we can see that for the smaller carnivores, the amount of energy that is reaching there is now even less, and it is 10 joules. So we began with 1000 joules, but now we are at 10 joules. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is how we are seeing that at every trophic level, the total energy being transferred, it gets reduced, right? So if somebody asks you like which trophic level would have the highest energy, so you'd say the producer, because that is
Producers.
the first trophic level. And then they'll ask you which one has the least amount. So you'd say the top carnivores or the last trophic level. And
Yes,
what if somebody asks you to explain why the last one gets the least amount of energy transferred to it? Then what would you say?
because the energy consumed, they consume the energy for each level.
And then what will happen? Like, yes, they consume it, but then what will happen?
And the energy given is lower than what they produced.
But how much is given?
10%.
10%. And always remember to mention that 10% of the total energy is given. Okay, we
Yes,
can't, like, we have to say, na, 10% of what? Right? 10% of
yes,
what? 10% of 5, like 500, 10% of what? So 10% of the total energy produced. Okay.
yes,
Whatever
ma'am.
energy is given there, whether it is 1000 joules, whether it is 100 joules, or it is 10 joules, that will be the total energy. So we'll have to take out the 10% of that particular point of energy. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So now talking about the energy transfer at trophic level. Now let us see the language about it. So first of all, the first point to ever remember is that plants capture 1%, only 1% of the total solar energy. Only 1% of it is captured. And then it does not actually mean that the plants only have 1% of the entire energy. Okay, but it's just that, like just imagine the sun is upon your head. Like the amount of heat that the sun produces, which reaches us, is so massive, isn't it? So if we take something like even 1% out of something so massive, that even that is large, right? Even though it is 1% only, but still it will be huge. Why? Because the solar energy is the ultimate source of energy. It is the biggest source of energy. Getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So talking about the like amount of energy captured by the plants, it is 1% of the total solar energy. Or you can also write it as the total sun energy. Okay. Now, moving forward, we'll also mention that this does not mean that plants only have 1% of energy. Okay. So it does not mean that plant will only have 1%. Just always remember the source, right? The source of heat energy is coming from the sun, and it is so huge that even 1% is a big amount. Okay. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, after the plants have taken that 1% of the energy, they fix the solar energy. And fixing the solar energy, do you know what is the meaning of fixing the solar energy?
Like they stop consuming the energy.
No, fixing the solar energy. Think more about it. What would it mean? It would actually mean to utilize the solar energy. And why would the plant use the sun energy?
To make food like in the presence of
Yes,
heat.
for photosynthesis, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. So the fixation of solar energy means doing the process of photosynthesis, meaning using the sun's energy for the method of photosynthesis, obviously in the presence of chlorophyll, right? And in the presence of carbon dioxide, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So then what happens? Then 10% of the energy produced by the plants, 10% of the energy produced by the plant, or you can also call them as the producers. Okay, so the 10% of this particular energy moves on to the next trophic level. And which one would that be?
Herbivores.
Yes, we can say it moves, but we can say that it gets transferred. Okay, so it gets transferred to the next trophic level. Now see, always remember that the producers are the first trophic level. Okay, so it starts with the producer. So you give first position to the producers, then second position to the herbivores. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
yes. Now the second trophic level is the herbivores, right? Herbivores. This much is clear?
Yes, ma'am.
And it will continue up till the end of the food chain. Okay, so it continues up till the end of the food chain.
Ma'am,
Okay,
can we say that man belongs to the top carnivores because we are the last?
see, the meaning of top carnivore is that those are the organisms who are not eaten by anyone else. Let's just say we are humans. Okay, so now the man eats the other animals, right? But
Yes, ma'am.
there is no animal that actually eats the man. I mean, for example, like I'm talking about a food chain. I'm not saying that the lion won't eat us when we go in front of it. No, I'm just saying that it is not the pattern that happens, right? Normally, we eat the other animals, whatever we are supposed to eat, and then there is no any like there is no other organism or the animal that actually eats us in a food chain. Getting
Yes,
my
ma'am.
point? So
Yes,
top
ma'am.
carnivores are all those organisms that are not eaten by any other organ. One example is man. Another example is lion. Is there any organism that hunts or feeds on lion?
No, ma'am.
No, right?
Yes, ma'am. No.
Hmm. Now, this does not mean that when the man or the human will die, they will not get decomposed, or nobody, like the hyenas or the scavengers, won't come to eat them, or there are no organisms that would come to eat lion. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in a particular food chain or in a particular food web, all those organisms that are not eaten by any other organism, those are known as the top carnivores. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, can you tell me what will happen? Let's just say like how lion is a predator, right? And
Yes.
deer is the prey. So what will happen if you remove all the prey species from the jungle? Let's just say that you're removing all the deers from the jungle. Now what will happen? What will be the consequence?
The tiger will starve in lack of food,
Hmm.
and like the offsprings of tiger will not grow because they are starving from food. Like their generation would not grow.
And ultimately, they will die,
They will die. Yes, ma'am.
right? So if you remove all the prey species, so all the predators would also die. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And if you remove all the predator species, then also all the prey species would start declining, because this predator prey mechanism is actually for a balance in the environment. Okay. The population control is because of that only. So let's just
Yes,
say if we've removed all sorts of predators from the ecosystem or the environment, then there would be no one to feed on the prey, isn't it?
yes,
So ultimately, the population of the prey will keep on increasing and increasing.
yes, ma'am.
And then once it has increased so much, then they will start fighting for food because the food resource would be less. People, like the
Yes,
organisms would be more, food will be less, water will be less, right? So
yes, ma'am.
ultimately, they'll start competing amongst themselves,
Yes, ma'am.
and then they'll also start dying because of lack of food. So what I mean by this is that for the survival of one type of population, the other type of population has to be in an equality. It cannot be in excess. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And this is like there is a very famous saying in biology that says that the predators are prudent. Okay. The meaning here is that a predator is so smart that it will know that it is not supposed to finish all the prey at once. You'll never find a lion hunting for 2 deers at one time, because it knows the value of the prey being there. If the prey species will be diminished, it will be extinct, then the predators will ultimately die. Getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
So the predators are, that is why they are very careful about it. They are very careful while they're hunting, so they are known as prudent. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. All right, so that was this. And now coming on to the 10% law of energy transfer. So it just says that at each of the trophic level, the energy transferred would be 10% of the total energy. Okay. Now, which one will be known as the first trophic level? Which will come here?
Producers.
Very good. The producers would come under this. And another thing to remember over here is that as soon as you keep on increasing the trophic level, okay, the number of organisms will start getting decreased. For example, just imagine there are so many producers in the world, right?
Yes, ma'am.
There are so many trees, so many plants, and so many BGAs, blue-green algae, isn't it?
Yes,
But
ma'am.
then if you want to compare the number of producers to the number of carnivores, which one will be more and which one will be less?
Number of producers would be more.
Yeah, much more, isn't it? So it is a law. It is basically how it happens in the nature. So if you start increasing the trophic level, if you move from the first to the second to the third to the fourth, the number of organisms at each trophic level, as you increase, the number of organisms will start decreasing. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
So always remember that the first trophic level belongs to the producers. They are known as the members of the first trophic level. And let's just write it. Yes.
What if the producers are absent in nature? The same thing what you told for like the carnivores would happen, the predators and prey.
If yeah, this is a very, you can say consequential question, because if the producers are not there in the world, then no one would survive. No one, not a single soul. There are so many reasons behind this. First of all, the directly dependents, the ones that actually depend directly on the producers, they would die because there would be nothing to eat, meaning the
Yes,
herbivores would die. Now, ultimately, if the herbivores would die, then the carnivores would die,
yes, ma'am.
isn't it? Now, if there are no plant products, see, producers are not just making food, they are also giving us so many plant products, right? Like we get cellulose, the clothes that we wear, the cotton comes from the plant only. The food
Yes,
that we eat comes from the plant, rice, mangoes, fruit, every single thing, it comes from the plants. So ultimately, if you remove the producers, the whole entire food chain would come crumbling down. It will just fail, zero. Okay.
ma'am.
So if you remove producers only from the food chain, so just imagine that no other trophic level would survive.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So now as we increase the trophic level, the number of organisms decreases. Okay. Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
All right. Now moving forward, let us see what is the significance of each of the trophic level. It is just what we discussed right now. Okay, the whole thing. Like if one trophic level is removed or disturbed, it will directly impact the next other trophic levels. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts up till now?
No, ma'am.
All right, very good. Now, always remember that the ultimate source of energy on the earth is
Producers.
no, but like from where do the producers get their energy?
Sun, solar energy.
Solar energy. Sunlight is the ultimate source. Then comes the producer. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, there is a phenomenon that is known as biological or biomagnification. Biomagnification. Now, let us see what does this particular phenomenon say. Now, see, there are so many, like you remember we discussed about the non-biodegradable substances?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I said that they cannot be, you can say, decomposed at a very faster rate. They persist in the environment for a really long time period, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. So, like for example, plastic. If you actually throw a plastic, and even if you bury a plastic, the plastic will stay in the ground, under the ground for many, many years, because the plastic is a non-biodegradable substance, and it does not get degraded very easily. Okay, so another non-biodegradable or a very harmful substance is DDT. Okay, now
What is DD?
DDT, I'll tell you. See, DDT is a chemical. Okay, it is usually used in the industrial area. Now, when this particular chemical is used in the industrial area, see the industrial effluents, meaning the waste from the industries, they are actually sent into the water bodies. Okay, so just imagine the chemicals getting mixed with the water bodies. Okay, now as soon as the chemicals get mixed up with the water bodies, now whatever organisms are living in the water, like for example fishes are there, smaller fishes are there. Okay, but before that also, do you know what are phytoplanktons?
Yes, ma'am, but exactly I don't know that.
Okay, what do you know about them? Tell me.
Ma'am, I don't know how to explain them. I know what it is, but I don't know how
See,
to explain.
all those aquatic plants that are found in the water beds. Okay, those are phytoplanktons. Then there are zooplanktons. Okay, now see, this is actually not there in your syllabus, but I'm just giving this DDT as an example. It is a chemical. Okay, same way, you like, do you know about pesticides and insecticides?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now see, what happens is that when we spray pesticides and this weedicides, insecticides on our plants, okay, where do we spray it? Do we spray it on the plant parts or do we spray it onto the soil?
Onto the soil.
Yes. So ultimately, it gets mixed with the soil. Okay. And then when the irrigation processes are done and everything is done, the chemicals which are there mixing up with the soil, it reaches the various water bodies. Okay. Now what happens? As soon as these chemicals reach the water bodies, the smaller fishes which are there in the water bodies, they use this chemical. Okay, they inhale or they actually ingest this particular chemical. And as I said, that this is a non-biodegradable substance, meaning there is no enzyme which is actually there to degrade it. So normally the digestive system won't have the enzyme as well, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So talking about the digestive system of the smaller fishes, they would also not have the enzyme to digest the chemical. So that chemical would remain inside the smaller fish's body. Up till now, it's clear?
Yes,
Hmm?
ma'am.
All right. Now, when those smaller fishes will be eaten by the larger fishes, okay, now this chemical will be transferred into the larger fish's body.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Again, since there is no enzyme made or there is no enzyme present in the digestive system, which is actually there to digest it, so now this whole chemical is accumulating in the body of the larger fish.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when we humans go and eat those fish, ultimately that chemical is coming into our body,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, are you seeing how the chemical is actually being transferred from one trophic level to another?
Yes, ma'am. Smaller amount of chemical at the end comes larger.
Yeah, and it starts getting accumulated and ultimately it is reaching our body, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So, this whole phenomena is actually biological magnification or biomagnification. Okay, when the chemical gets like accumulated at each trophic level and like it does not get degraded. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
and the very nasty thing about these chemicals is that they do not actually, like for example, like do you see that, whenever in our house the rice is cooked and like the fruits are peeled, before that we wash them?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, why? Because there are, first of all, there are so many like dust and dirt on it. Then there are so many chemicals, and the greatest thing is that even after washing them, the chemicals can sometimes still persist on them. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so you've understood biological magnification.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
All right, very good. Now moving forward, let us see how do the activities or whatever activities that we are doing is affecting the environment. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, first of all, see, pollution is the biggest thing. Whether it is air pollution, whether it is water pollution, whether it is soil pollution, and even noise pollution. Okay, all these four types of pollutions, they are happening in the world, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And how exactly can you define pollution?
They are harmful.
Yes, they are harmful, but how would you define it? Hmm? How would you define pollution? Let's just say, like, if I want you to define air pollution, so how would you do it?
They contain nitrogenous waste, smoke,
Hmm.
which are
Meaning,
harmful for the
due to
body.
the presence of any harmful substance, let's just say nitrogenous, like bodies, or the carbon monoxide and all these, when their accumulation in the air, let's just say air, meaning due to undesirable substances, the air is getting degraded, like the air quality is getting degraded, so we'll call that as air pollution. Okay. And this air pollution or water pollution, it actually takes place by both man-made also, like by human activities also, as well as naturally also. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Now see, just like that, there are two things discussed in your syllabus. The first one is ozone layer depletion, and the second one is managing the garbage. So talking about the ozone layer, do you know what is ozone? Hmm? See, ozone is denoted as O3, like how O2 is there for oxygen.
Yes, ma'am.
So same way O3 is there for, it is a molecule which is actually formed when three molecules of oxygens come together.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, so that is ozone. Now see, this ozone is actually, you can say, whenever the UV rays, they act on the oxygen molecule. Okay, they split the oxygen molecules into its atom. Okay, and when these atoms, when they combine with the molecular oxygen that is already present there, then it becomes ozone. Okay.
Ma'am, like how?
Meaning, see, like how this is O2. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, O2 gets acted upon by UV rays. UV means ultraviolet. Okay. So when UV rays, this is ultraviolet. So when UV rays, they act upon the oxygen, they break it into oxygen atoms, two oxygen atoms. Okay. Now, when one oxygen atom combines with one oxygen molecule, see, do you understand the difference between oxygen molecule and oxygen atom?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So this is an atom, right? And
Yes,
whenever
ma'am.
two atoms come together, they make a molecule.
Yes, ma'am.
So whenever one atom of oxygen and one molecule of oxygen, they mix together, they combine together, we have one molecule of ozone, that is O3. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now see, this ozone is actually very important for us. Why? Because there is a ozone layer, okay, surrounding the Earth's surface. Now, this ozone layer is very important. Why? Because it is actually acting like a shield. For example, if this is the Earth, then the ozone layer is acting as a sheath from the harmful sun rays. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, and what happens is that it actually protects the Earth from the UV rays of the sun. And again, UV means ultraviolet radiation. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, let's just say from the sun, the ultraviolet radiations are coming, and this ozone, it is acting like a blanket surrounding the Earth, and then the Earth is getting protected. Now, if let's just like imagine if the ozone were to be absent, then all these UV rays would come to the earth, right?
Yes, it would.
The biggest problem that this can cause in us humans and even in animals and plants, let's just talk about first humans. So it can majorly cause skin cancer. Okay, these UV rays are so harmful for us that they can cause skin cancer when exposed for a really long period of time. Getting my point?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is the reason why the ozone layer acts as a blanket. Why? First of all, because it protects us from the UV rays of the sun.
Ma'am,
Okay,
they say that this UV rays could weaken our immune system and cause cataract also.
definitely, yes, it can do so. And you know, even these UV radiation can cause so many mutations in our body. They can destroy our DNA also.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
they can cause so many diseases. UV rays are very harmful. Okay, now see, a part of the UV ray, that is UVB, UVA, UVB, and UVC, all these rays are present. A part of the UV rays, that is usually UVB, actually reaches the Earth's surface. And have you seen that during the summertime we start getting tanned?
Yes, ma'am.
Tanning happens. Like for those people who are in the lighter skin tone, they get they get sunburned. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Why? Because of the UV rays, because it is so harmful. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So ultimately, what we are seeing over here is that this ozone is there for our protection. It is sort of acting like a blanket. Now let us talk about why and how the ozone layer is being depleted. Now you understand, if the ozone layer will be depleted, what will happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Now see, what happens is that there is a chemical which is known as CFC, means chloro, hmm,
Fluorofluorocarbons.
chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs. Now see, these CFCs, they are used in the refrigerators, they are used in the air conditioners. Okay, so all of these appliances that we regularly use in our homes, they contain chlorofluorocarbons. Have you seen, have you ever noticed that when you sit near your fridge, or stand near your fridge, you might hear a fan like thing going on in the fridge?
Yes, ma'am.
So it emits actually the CFCs. Okay, it emits the chlorofluorocarbon. Now just imagine, there are so many houses in the world, there are so many houses that do have the refrigerators and air conditioners in them, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
just imagine that as soon as they are running, the CFCs are being emitted into the environment, right? Now,
Yes, ma'am.
as soon as these CFCs would start reaching the ozone, they cause thinning of the ozone layer. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when the ozone layer thinning will happen, like during the 1986 time, okay, in those time period, during the Antarctica region, there was like observance of the ozone layer becoming thin. Okay, so if, like, they called it as the ozone hole. So just imagine, and that point of time, the whole, you can say, the world actually came together, and there was an organization that is known as UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program. Now, in this particular program, they, like, every country pledged that they would actually use CFC free refrigerators throughout the world. It became mandatory. Okay, is
Yes, ma'am.
it clear?
Ma'am, I didn't get the UNEP part.
Okay, see, at that point of time wherein the ozone thinning, like in the Antarctica, was happening. So, in the year 1986, UNEP, that is, the full form is United Nation Environment Program. Okay, this is Like United Nation, you understand there are so many nations that like they are coming together to pledge for it. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so United Nations Environment Program. Now this program actually made it mandatory. Okay, made it mandatory to use CFC free refrigerators all over the world, because this is not just one particular area that is being in concerned, it is the whole world, right? So this is what the UNEP stands for and what it actually made all the nations, like whole world, do. Okay, is it clear? Hmm? Am I audible? Hello, Zainab, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened?
No, my laptop started lagging.
Okay, okay. So you've understood everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am. Can you give me the definition for biomagnification?
Yes, yes, I will give. All right, so this whole ozone layer depletion and everything you've understood?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now you write down
Ma'am, 1 minute.
biomag. Yeah,
Ma'am, can I copy the ozone?
yeah. Wait, just give me 1 second. I'll complete the biomagnification and then you can note down everything. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This you've understood. It is the accumulation of harmful non-biodegradable substances at each trophic level. And you can give the example of DDT, comma. You can give the example of pesticides. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now you can start noting from this particular part. You can write this whole energy thing as an example also, taking the 10% out. So you'll know, see, like they can give you, like producers are making any number they can give this much amount of energy. So you'd have to take out 10% of the total energy and give it to each of the trophic level. Okay, they can ask you this type of question in the exam.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Now you copy it down and tell me when to scroll.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, like while calculating, we have to always put off that 10% by 100 by the amount of energy they have got, right, ma'am?
Yes, like how you normally take out 10% of anything. If I say 10% of 100, so what you will do? 10 by 100 into 10, like how you normally take out the percentage. So whatever
Yes.
energy will, like that, see, they will give you energy. It does not mean that they will not give you energy at all. They will give you some value, like how I gave here the producer's energy to be 10, like 1000 joules. So now what I did, 10 for the next trophic level, I did 10% of 1000 joules, right? And how much was it like at the end?
100.
100 joules. Okay, so this is how it goes. You'd have to take out 10 and see. Don't always think that it would come like in 00 numbers. It can come in different numbers also. Okay, like
Yes, ma'am.
909, 9, any number can come. Okay, so be prepared for taking out the percentage. Okay,
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can you scroll down?
yes, yes.
Ma'am, can you scroll down? Ma'am, I have noted this part. Can you scroll down? Ma'am, can you scroll down? Done, ma'am.
Done. All right. Now the last topic of this particular chapter is management of wastes. So see, there are 3 R's. Do you know them?
Refuse, reuse, recycle.
Yes. First of all, we try to reduce it. Now, when we can't reduce it, we try to reuse it. Now, when we can't reuse it, we try to recycle it. So these are the 3 R's that we must do for the management of the waste. Now, the biodegradable waste are treated in one way, and the non-biodegradable waste, they are treated in another way. Okay. So that goes behind the management of waste. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubts?
No, ma'am.
So basically with this, we have come to the end of the whole entire chapter. Now, do you have any particular doubts in this particular chapter?
No, ma'am.
Everything's clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, shall we move on to how do organisms reproduce, right?
Yes, ma'am. You said you'll give the notes of that chapter.
Yes. Wait, let me share my screen with you. Okay, are you able to see the screen? Hmm? Can you see my screen, Zainab? Are you able to see the screen, Zainab?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So talking about, let me give you a brief. Okay. So talking about the reproduction. So the reproduction is of two types. The first one is asexual. The second one is sexual reproduction. Talking about the asexual reproduction, this is the type of reproduction wherein only one parent is involved. A single parent is involved. Also, there is no need for gamete formation. Okay. And the offsprings that are formed as a result of asexual reproduction, they are known as clones. Why clones? Is because they are the exact copy of the parent. Okay. Now there
Yes,
are many different types of asexual reproduction. So talking about them, there is fission. Fission can be of two types. There is binary fission and then there is multiple fission. Okay. Now after that comes the budding. Now this whole thing I've taught you, right?
yes, ma'am.
Asexual reproduction is clear to you, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. It is clear.
All right, good. All right, then you can quickly start noting it down because there are only 4 minutes left to the class. So like you can note down as much as you want and then I'll be sharing the like see I the only reason why I don't want to share the PDF is because once you get the PDF then like the seriousness for the topic just flies away. Getting my point? So
You,
when I
you,
make you note it down, so the things they stay in your brain for a while. So you can note up till fission for today's class, and then in the next class I'll explain the rest of it. It'll be sort of like a re-revision, and then you'll note down the rest. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
All right. Now see, let me talk a little bit about fission first. Now see, in the process of fission, one parent's body, okay, the unicellular organism, the body of that organism would divide and ultimately form two daughter cells. Okay, now these two daughter cells, they would look exactly like each other and they would look exactly like the parent. Okay. Now, this process of fission, it actually takes place in two steps or two ways. The first one is binary fission, and the second one is multiple fission. Now, you can note it down.
Yes, ma'am. And what is meant by there is no gamete formation means?
Yes, see, like how during the process of sexual reproduction, it takes place when the male gamete fuses with the female gamete, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But here, since only one parent is involved, why would the gametes fuse? Why would there be any need for the gametes to be formed only? Okay, so that is why during the process of asexual reproduction, the gametes are not formed because they are not needed. Only the parent body is involved in the asexual reproduction. Got
Yes,
it?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Then noting it down.
Yes, ma'am. Can you scroll a bit down?
Sure. Write it up till the two types of fission only, and then in the next class we'll start with binary fission. Okay. And you can draw
Done,
the
ma'am.
okay, and you can draw the sort of diagrammatic view of the fission also.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I
So
drew it.
basically,
I drew it, ma'am.
okay, great, great. So do you have any difficulties up till now?
No, ma'am.
Also, I forgot to ask you, like during your exam, like in the paper, did you have any difficulty solving any questions from how do organisms reproduce?
Ma'am, like some indirect questions, like if they say an
Hmm.
organism A, like that types of questions.
Okay, okay. All right. So we'll tackle those also. We'll see how to actually approach the questions from this particular chapter too, like how we did in heredity and evolution.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we'll do that also.
Yes, ma'am.
All right then. Okay, then I'll meet you in the next class.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything to say? What happened?
No,
You took a long pause.
no, ma'am.
All right. Okay. All right, then I'll meet you in the next class. Okay.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Good night.